Alright Banditos, listen up. Season 1 is here, and with it comes the brand new Colossus, the Death Stalker. But hold up, a lot of you haven't even cleared Gluttony yet. Yeah, I'm talking about that beast you've been banging your head against in public lobbies. But good news? I've got your back with a guide that'll get you through it. Look, I know Gluttony's a pain, but I'm here to help you out with a breakdown on how to beat this giant in public lobbies. Okay, I'll be giving you the rundown of all the key players, the builds, and exactly what everyone should be doing during the fight. Plus, I'm breaking down Gluttony's mechanics, and let's be real, if you're in public lobbies, you know you need every edge you can get. Am I right?
Makes it exciting!
I know what you're thinking. Isn't Gluttony supposed to get nerfed? Yup, you're absolutely right. When Death Stalker drops on October 10th, they're weakening Gluttony to keep things balanced. But don't get too comfortable. He's not about to be a walk in the park. Just ask the community how they're still sweating through the Molten Fortress after that nerf. So before the new Colossus shows up and throws your life into chaos, let's get you sorted with Gluttony. And let me tell you, Gluttony public lobbies, not much better than Molten Fortress Fiasco. I've lost count on how many times I've run this fight, but it was necessary. Why? Because I needed to find out exactly why so many teams were eating dirt, and now, after all that glorious suffering, I've cracked the code. I know what you're thinking. It's not that hard, people just don't get it. Well, hold your horses. It's not that people are dumb, it's that there's no real resource out there covering player perspective. Sure, everyone explains Gluttony's mechanics, but what about your role? What's actually important for you to do in the heat of the battle or when things change? No one breaks that down. When I say this is a full guide, I absolutely mean it. We're gonna cover this fight from every key role's perspective. And I'm gonna show you exactly what to focus on. Blinders up so you can tune out the distractions and do what really matters. As always, I packed this guide with everything you need, so make sure you grab the download link below. Jumping in, let's start with the basics. Gluttony deals chill damage, and he's weakest against fire elements, followed by electric, and target his weak points, his two shoulders and the core cover on his chest. Can't get a clean shot? Then you can go for the knees, because it's better than nothing. Now brace yourself. Gluttony's got 5 types of damage, all while he's constantly spawning ads to make your life harder. First up is his ice laser. This one's a killer. It'll freeze you and wipe most, if not all, of your health. But hey, silver lining, you can see it coming. Just tuck and roll your way to safety behind cover. Next, he's packing ice grenade launchers. These things shoot out ice shards, also painful. But again, you can see them coming. Roll and evade until you find safe cover. Then there's his AoE attack. Snowballs at ground level. You'll know it's coming when he arches his back like he's throwing a tantrum. You can dodge it by hopping twice or ducking into cover. But wait, there's more. Get too close and he'll smack the ground with a melee attack that's got a very wide cone. So stop humping his leg. Finally, we've got the big one, his wipe mechanic. Now that's tied to a purple meter on his right arm. When it's full, he'll trigger a wipe. The entire fight comes down to managing that purple meter. Eliminate him before he eliminates you. And just in case Gluttony's not annoying enough, there are plenty of other ways to die in this fight. His ads, yeah, they actually shoot at you, so don't ignore them. Then there are the ice balls. If they break over you or touch you in any way, it's gonna hurt. Oh, and during his immunity phase, watch out for the purple energy balls. They explode and their range is no joke. If you're caught near one, it'll take you down. Welcome to the Gluttony fight.
Let's do this!
Alright, now that you know all the ways you can be eliminated, let's talk floor plan. Gluttony spawns right in the middle, and he rarely leaves that central zone. So let's call this area no man's land. It's a hot zone of chaos and pain. You don't want to be there unless you absolutely have to. Once the fight kicks off, 3 generators will spawn around the map, marked here with white circles. During the damage phase, they'll generate snow spheres, which you'll use to manage Gluttony's doomsday weapon, that white mechanic we talked about. During the immunity phase, these same generators will spawn electric spheres. They're purple, and you can use these to break his shield. Now, positioning is everything in this fight. The best setup looks like this. The sphere handler, front and center to manage those crucial snow and electric spheres. DPS 1 to the left, DPS 2 to the right, and then the support role, or that fourth player, at one of the Bravo generators. Personally, I prefer Bravo right. As for No Man's Land, it's exactly what it sounds like, dangerous. You don't need to be in the center unless you're desperate for consumables from the ads or you're making a move to hit Gluttony's weak point. Hanging out in the middle, that's just asking to be Gluttony's next target. It's not about whether you're tanky enough. Being here messes with your ability to do your job. Constant damage is needed out of you. Plus, it puts you in range of his melee swings and AoE attacks. And if you go down in the middle, someone else is gonna have to risk their life to revive you. Anything you can do in No Man's Land, you can do from the safer Alpha Zone. Stay there unless the timing is perfect for a quick, calculated move. As you get more comfortable with the mechanics, you'll learn when and if it's worth taking that risk. But trust me, sticking to the plan and staying out of the middle will make your life a lot easier. But pick your moments, play it smart.
Let's do this!
Before we dive into the specific roles and how to eliminate Gluttony, let's wrap up the essentials with more Surviving Gluttony 101. Survival tip number 1. Know your zones. Alpha Zone is below the elevation of No Man's Land, and Bravo left and Bravo right are above it. Why does this matter? When Gluttony uses his AoE attack, it won't hit you if you're in these zones. No one needs to hop around or scramble to cover. Plus, since he rarely leaves the middle, you're safe from his melee too. Survival tip number 2, don't show up with a random descendant. Trust me, this isn't the fight for experimentation. To bring someone like Bunny, you're gonna have a bad time. Gluttony has mechanics and you need the right descendants for the job. Survival tip number 3, your descendant decides your role. If you roll in with Ajax, congrats. You just assigned yourself the support role. Don't fight it, just embrace it. More on that later. Survival tip number 4, Valby is your best friend. You can technically beat Gluttony without a Valby, but in public lobbies, it's not even worth attempting. 1 Valby is good, 2 is better, and heck, 3 or 4 Valbys is a dream team. No Valbys? Prepare for pain. I hate saying it, but it's true. Survival tip number 5, have a Valby build. If Valby is basically the MVP of this fight, why not have a build ready for them? It's just smart. Survival tip number 6, put on chill resistance. Slap that onto your sensor, add the antifreeze mod, and max out the chill resist. I recommend having at least 2 of these sources of chill resistance equipped. It'll save your life. Survival tip number 7, never take your eye off Gluttony. I'm serious about this. The fastest way to lose this fight is by players going down too often. But here's the thing, Gluttony's attacks, they're predictable. If you're paying attention, keep your eyes on him and you'll avoid most of his hits. It's a rhythm, you'll get used to it. Survival tip number 8, don't shoot energy balls too early, I'm telling you. The perspective in the void is weird and objects always look closer than they actually are. Energy balls need to pop on Gluttony, not in the middle of nowhere. And whatever you do, don't let him touch them. That's a fast track to game over. Survival tip number 9, hide at the start. When the fight begins and Gluttony's scanning for a target, just stay hidden, especially if you're DPS. No sense in becoming the first victim of the day. It sucks dying in the first 15 seconds. Survival tip number 10, prioritize the shoulders, then the chest. When Gluttony goes down on his hands and knees, that's your chance to work his chest weak point. Get under there. Sure, the knees are weak points too, but they're not as important as the shoulders. You can't latch onto the knees, but the support role can latch onto the shoulders, buying the team precious time to burn him down without enraging him. Good. Now that you're fully loaded with survival tips, let's get into the real work. How to play your role and take down Gluttony for good.
Let's do this!
To beat Gluttony, you've got to nail the team composition. It's not just about who you like to play, it's about who can get the job done. So let's break it down. Here's the best squad for the fight. In order of importance, it goes Valby, Gley, Enzo, and Sharen. If you can't run this setup, Eugen and Ajax are solid alternatives for the support role. Now, if you're trying to tackle this fight with a random character, you're probably in the wrong class. And if you're doing it in public lobbies, well, you're likely confusing the team and watching people drop out before the fight even starts. For public lobbies right now, I do not recommend bringing other descendants. Let me give you some examples. Haley is a great weapon platform, but she's too slow. Gluttony hits way too hard for you to not have great mobility. Lepic can pack a punch, but he's glassy, and that's a bad idea in this fight. You need endurance here. Trying to one-phase Gluttony in a public lobby requires the perfect squad. Without that, you're just setting yourself up for a wipe. Personally, I love Lepic, but in public lobbies, he's hit or miss. Okay, now roles. Valby is your ice sphere manager. That's her primary job. She's also the best reviver on the team because of her speed and ability to reduce incoming damage. Gley is pure DPS. That's it, nothing else. Enzo is DPS and buffs the team. His main job is DPS unless there are two Gleys on the team, in which case he becomes part DPS, part support. He's also responsible for latching onto weak points so the Gleys can focus, and he provides ammo and backup on spheres to speed things up. Sharen is a DPS support hybrid. Her job is to debuff Gluttony, reducing his resistance to damage and speeding up the fight significantly. When she's not debuffing, she's all about DPS. Eugen and Ajax are pure support. They latch onto weak points, revive players, and help where needed. But the key thing is, if you pick these Descendants, your job is to keep people alive. Things can get messy in public lobbies. What if you end up with 4 Gleys? Well, you could try to burn Gluttony down in one phase before he goes immune, meaning you skip managing the spheres entirely. If all players are skilled and can stay on their feet, it's possible. But if that's not working, you'll need to figure out your roles quickly. Since there's usually not much comms chatter in public lobbies, positioning is key. If you line up behind a generator, you're volunteering to handle the spheres, like Valby would. If you're posted up in Alpha Zone, left or right, that signals you're on DPS. But if you don't have a Valby, you'll need 2 players managing spheres. So someone has to step up. Let's say you have 3 Gleys and 1 Enzo. Any Descendant labeled as support, like Enzo, or even an alternate for support, like Sharen, has to manage spheres. Otherwise, you'll be running around with no one handling the mechanics, and it'll be a total waste of time. Bottom line is to know your role. Communicate through your positioning and make sure someone's on those spheres, or you're not getting out alive.
Let's do this!
There are 3 phases to this fight, ideally. You got the damage phase, the immunity phase, and the elimination phase. It's perfectly fine if you hit another immunity phase, but that's only if Valby's on the team. Without her, things get much harder. Here's the catch. Every time you enter another immunity phase, Valby's job gets tougher. The generators move further away with each phase. I've marked the second generator locations on the map so you can see where they'll be, but after that, it gets so rough, I didn't even bother marking the third set of locations. Don't lose hope though. As long as you've got Valby managing those spheres, you can pull through. Just know that each immunity phase makes things significantly trickier. And if you hit a third, you're really in for a fight.
Let's do this!
All right, let's talk about the star of the show, Valby. First things first, you don't want to run just any Valby build. You need the Spiral Tidal Wave build, which is exclusive to Ultimate Valby. If you're bringing Valby into this fight, you're the designated Ice Sphere handler. That's your job. Not DPS, not crowd control, spheres. I know people might tell you Valby should do this or that, but let me give you some blinders. Spheres are your only focus. If there are 2 Valbys, sure, you can juggle DPS or spheres, but if there's only 1 DPS player, one of those 2 Valbys must step up as a second DPS. Here's why this build works so well. The Spiral Tidal Wave Transcendent mod takes over Valby's skill 1, turning it into a long-range water ball launcher. The water ball pulls ice spheres towards Gluttony, handling the key mechanics of the fight. A good Valby can manage all the mechanics, letting the rest of the team focus entirely on DPS. Valby's build has a key focus. You really only need 2 things to make the build work. Maximum uptime on Spiral Tidal Wave, so low cooldowns, and high survivability. You're gonna stack HP and chill resistance. And then just keep your mind on one thing. Spheres. All right, playing Valby tips and tricks. Positioning, stick to Alpha Zone and spam that water skill. If you see ads, pick them out to keep your resources topped off. You're gonna be Gluttony's target. Gluttony loves to target the sphere handlers. So when he comes for you, phase into your cleanup skill for damage reduction and speed, or just roll until you're safe. Watch out for those generators. Don't use them as cover. Gluttony's attacks go right through it, so stay alert. And sphere management. By sending spheres into Gluttony, you're actively slowing down his purple meter and delaying the white mechanic. Everyone else should be focusing on pure DPS. If someone goes down, Valby is fast and durable enough to revive them. But if Eugen or Ajax is on the team, let them handle it. During the immunity phase, not much changes for Valby. Your goal is still to send ice spheres into Gluttony, but now purple electric spheres will spawn from the generators too. Nobody can damage Gluttony during this phase, so it's your job to get him out of immunity. Here's how it works. Ice spheres attract purple spheres. Tidal wave attracts ice spheres. So you're basically doing the same thing, sending spheres into Gluttony, but don't let Gluttony touch the purple ones. You need to get them close enough so when the purple sphere pops, it zaps him. Shoot the purple sphere to pop it when it's close enough. A few zaps will break his immunity and get your team back to DPS.
Let's do this!
Here are the common mistakes during immunity phase. I gotta list these out. Popping purple spheres too early. The perspective can be tricky here, so as you get more comfortable, get closer to Gluttony to better judge the timing. Popping the spheres right when they spawn. This does nothing. You need them near Gluttony when they pop. You'll see new players do this a lot. Letting purple spheres touch Gluttony. Bad news, that will lead to a wipe, so don't let it happen. Standing too close to the purple spheres, when they pop, they'll damage you, so keep your distance. If your team is assisting with the purples during the immunity phase, great, as long as they're not ruining your perfect timing. Once Gluttony comes out of immunity, it's back to sending ice spheres into him. But if he's close to being defeated, you can make a judgment call and join the DPS team to burn him down. Just be smart. If your team's DPS is slow, stick to your job and manage those spheres to avoid another immunity phase. But dragging out the fight can be risky, so sometimes it's worth the push.
Let's do this!
I'll run down the build fast. The goal here is simple. Low cooldowns and low MP cost for maximum uptime on your tidal wave. And then from there, it's high survivability, so we'll stack HP and chill resistance because a squishy Valby isn't helping anybody. And so, you know, these builds are tried and tested for public lobbies, and they'll give you the tools you need to carry your team through the Gluttony fights. Increased HP because we want her tanky. HP amplification for the same reason. Maximize conservation because we're going to be using her skill constantly, so we need to bring down the cost. We're not worried about any skill power, so we don't care if we lose any of that. Energy collection for the same reason. We want MP recovery so we can continue to spam her skill. Strong mentality so that I can keep the costs down and continue to spam her skill. I don't have this catalyzed, but she's exactly where she needs to be. MP conversion to minimize her skill cooldowns. This also decreases our MP, but with all the skill cost reduction, it's perfect. Increased defense because it's important that Valby stays alive. I got multi-talented because we're spamming a dimension skill, which means we're gonna get another 20% reduction on our skill cooldowns. Nimble fingers for faster cooldowns, and then anti-freeze solution to give us some more resistance. This basically keeps us from freezing, and then there's the chill resistance on top of that. You can also use maximize chill resist, but I encourage you to go with anti-freeze so you don't freeze and you can stay moving even if you take actual chill damage. So the star of the show on this build is the spiral tidal wave, so bubbles no longer bounce off the ground but are now projectiles fired forward. Big giant water balls, and they attract Gluttony's impurities like magnets. It takes over her one skill, and as you can see, our cooldown before multi-talented is 4.3 seconds. Notice my cooldown rate is at 0.7%. The cap is 90 in this game, so we're pretty close. The other skill you'll be using from time to time is her cleanup. So her number 3, you're not going to be using it very often. And I do recommend minimizing this because you want to save all of your MP for your number 1. For your reactor, I mean, if you can get it to line up, great. But what I'm after is skill cooldown, then skill cost. As far as her external components go, the most important thing you can do here is add chill resistance. So focus on that first and then load up with HP everywhere and then defense otherwise. If you can get MP and MP recovery where it fits, then that would be even better. For the most part, just go with whatever weapon you find best. If you can get fire attack on your weapon, then even better, which is why I am maining the Enduring Legacy for this fight. It's got a big mag. I don't have to reload very often. Otherwise, I save all the ammo for ads and or Gluttony himself. For mods, this is basically the setup that I'm using for Enzo. Mental focus, because she stops and starts shooting a lot, where normally I'm running sharp precision shot. That makes it less painful for that start-stop thing. Otherwise, this is the setup. The fire enhancement mod, notice that, and it's loaded up with crits. So as far as our crits go, we're at 33.5% with 7.875%. You could balance this a little bit higher for crit hit rate if you like to, but since she's not shooting a lot, I didn't want to recatalyze the whole weapon just for this setup. And then the other weapon as a backup, the Nazistra's Devotion is a good one in case you want to debuff him. The duration of the debuff is only 3 seconds, so it would require you to constantly maintain that. But this is a really good weapon to bring to the fight at the very end when you're gonna burn Gluttony to the ground. For mods on here, it's not fully catalyzed, but it's in a good place. And notice payout, that's probably one of the most important mods on the weapon, because when you land a firearm weak point attack, which is what you're gonna be shooting at with this weapon, then all rounds are not consumed for 3 seconds. So it increases your mag.
Let's do this!
Now let's dive into DPS, starting with Gley. Like before, let me give you some blinders. You've got 2 jobs: always deal damage and stay alive. That's it. And if you're constantly needing revives, you're dragging the team down. No matter how much you load up on defense, Gluttony hits hard. So you've got to stay on your feet. Never take your eye off of him, and always position yourself for solid damage angles. I recommend an increased sensory build for simplicity. It's less complicated and gives you more defensive options, which is crucial, especially if you're new to the fight. The biggest mistake Gley players make: showing up with a glass cannon. Sure, you can deal big damage that way, but if you're down half the fight, it doesn't matter. The DPS team has to stay alive. Constantly reviving teammates is the #1 reason teams fail. So how do you play Gley? Well, to start the fight, as the battle begins, hide and activate your frenzy state. Once Gluttony finishes scanning, open fire, starting with his shoulders. Only stop if he targets you. Target priorities. Focus on weakening the shoulders first so a support player can latch onto them. Once a shoulder is weak, move to the chest or the other shoulder. Do not shoot a weak point that someone is latched onto. It messes with their role. When Gluttony goes down, aim for his chest weak point. If that's not an option, then and only then should you target his shoulders or his knees. And keep moving to maintain distance from ads, but clear them out from time to time to make sure there are resources on the ground and so that they stop shooting at you. If you don't need those resources, someone else will. During the immunity phase, your main focus is clearing ads to keep the floor littered with resources. This helps Valby focus on the spheres since she can grab mana and ammo without losing momentum. You can also help pop those electric spheres, but be careful, don't stand directly under them or they'll take you down. Fine to go into no man's land during this phase to clear ads or shoot spheres, but don't linger. And if you see Gluttony arches back, he's winding up for his AoE attack. Just hop a couple of times to dodge it. Whatever you do, avoid getting close enough to trigger his melee attack. As long as Gley and Valby are doing their jobs, the fight should go smoothly. Your goal as Gley is to stay on your feet, keep doing damage, and manage resources effectively. Quick little side note, all these roles are straightforward on their own. The challenge comes when players start trying to do jobs outside of their role. If Gley starts focusing on spheres instead of dealing damage, the team will eventually wipe. Valby buys time, but the longer the fight drags on, the tougher it gets. Gley's sole focus should be DPS, with maybe an assist here or there, nothing more. Gley's build is simple. It's all about maximizing uptime on her third skill, increased sensory. You want to ensure you're constantly dealing high damage with as little downtime as possible. This is how we do it. I'm not running any Transcendent mod on this one. Here's the high level of what the build is, so take your screenshot if you need to. Overall, we're going for maximized duration, minimized cooldowns, and minimized cost. So starting with focus on dimension, this is really just for the cooldown because we're not using the skill damage part. MP conversion to keep our skill cooldowns low, and she doesn't have MP, so we're good there. Nimble fingers for faster cooldowns, maximize duration to keep her number 3 up. skill extension to keep her number 3 up, shot focus to give us more firearm damage because we're not using any skills for damage, increased HP for survivability, stim accelerant for more survivability at the cost of MP, which she doesn't use, maximize conservation, which drives her skill costs down so we can spam it as much as we can, which means it's going to use less HP because that's what drives her skills, not mana. And then walk a tightrope, which is going to give us 30% more firearm attack when our HP is 50% or less. I'm not doing anything to proc that. It's just bonus damage when we get down there. So as far as her skills go, you're going to activate her frenzy and then it just stays up. Unless you die, then you got to activate it again. Otherwise, it's all about increased sensory. So you're just going to spam this as much as possible. So the cooldown is 9.8 seconds and the duration is 9.6 seconds. So there's only a micro gap in between those. So that fraction of a second doesn't really matter. You can use whatever reactor you want to, but skill duration and skill cooldown are the substats that you would like. So you want maximum HP, defense, and then chill resistance is really important, but she doesn't use MP, so that's not a big deal. But what you are after is duration if you can, and that's why I'm running 2 pieces of annihilation. If you like, you can run 4 pieces of annihilation to get a little bit more damage, but I didn't have a sensor with chill resistance, and that's important for her survivability because you don't want Gley down, and her damage is just fine the way it is. And then weapons, nothing has changed here from the Valby build, so I'll just let you take a screenshot. This is maximized crits, and then we got the mods that you typically see on all weapons in this game. And that's the only weapon I'm using with Gley. You can also use Greg's if you want to, or the Secret Garden. So she's got a 33.52% crit hit rate at 7.875. She doesn't have to worry about ammo. This fight takes some serious damage output. So ammo is the last thing you want to worry about, which is why Gley is the main for DPS in this fight.
Let's do this!
If you show up with Enzo, you're signing up for DPS, but be ready to switch to a support role depending on the team comp. Enzo's a powerhouse, cranking out excellent damage while also supplying the team with ammo and boosting outgoing damage. Your job, like Gley's, is to focus on 2 things: deal damage and stay alive. Managing your resources is important, but if you're constantly going down, you're not helping. Starting the fight, kick things off like Gley. Head to Alpha Zone left or right, stay hidden while Gluttony scans, then open fire. Prioritize Gluttony's shoulders, then switch to his chest once a support player latches onto his weak points. During the immunity phase, clear ads, assist with the spheres, and help Valby wherever needed. This keeps the floor littered with resources and allows Valby to focus on her primary job. Sometimes you need to switch to support. If you got 2 Gleys and a Valby on your team, that makes you support. Your support role mainly revolves around latching onto weak points. When Gluttony's weak point turns yellow, it's your job to jump on. This buys the team precious time to deal damage without increasing Gluttony's enrage meter. You're also the sphere management backup. You can set up in Bravo right or Bravo left, giving you a good position to juggle DPS and spheres when necessary. During the immunity phase, your focus shifts mostly to managing spheres. You'll need to balance switching between DPS and spheres based on what the team needs. If DPS is lagging, help out with damage. If the team is managing spheres well, stick to your DPS role. The most critical part of your job as support is latching onto those weak points once Gluttony's health dips below that 30 to 40% mark. By doing so, you're stopping him from entering another immunity phase. Hang on for as long as you can to buy the DPS team time. If they haven't prepped the shoulders, give them a hand with weakening those spots. If you're assigned to DPS, the support player, whether that's Ajax or somebody else, will take over the latching job. But if you're in a team with 2 Valbys and 2 DPS, one of the Valbys should handle the latching. Point is, you just need to adapt based on the team's setup and focus on what the fight needs most. Enzo's strength lies in his ability to be versatile, switching between pure DPS and support depending on the matchup. Stay flexible and you'll be a key part of taking down Gluttony. This isn't really that different from the most popular Enzo build in the game right now. So Supply Firearm Enhancer is a big addition to his damage. And then second is his ability to never run out of ammo. So his mods are set up to increase duration and minimize cooldown. Otherwise, it's about building his survivability. So you're going to be using his 1, 3, and 4 skills constantly. So this summons a buff that's going to give more weak point damage and crit hit rate increase to anybody that touches it. And it resets if you switch weapons or reload. So every time you reload, you're going to end up having to drop one of these. It becomes a routine. He's one of the descendants that really makes use of shields. And that's because of his enhanced combat suit, which is a repair drone that gives him a spurt of 25% initial shield recovery and then 6% continuous shield recovery thereafter. He has the perfect support, which its big thing is that it supplies you with, well, ammo, but it also gives you additional firearm attack, crit rate, and faster reloads. This also buffs your team if they're within range. So we have increased shield for more survivability, Battle of Stamina for more survivability, increased defense, auto immunity, nimble fingers to decrease cooldown so we have more access to our skills, maximize duration so that we keep our damage buffs up from our number 4 skill, as well as keeping our heals up, skill extension for the same reason, MP conversion so we have access to our skills more often, increased HP for more survivability, an antifreeze solution for the same. So we have the Enduring Legacy as his main because it puts out fire. Otherwise, all the mods are the same as I've shown you on the Gley build and the Valby build. He basically maxes out the crits on this thing. The way I have this weapon set up is actually optimized for Enzo because he pushes the crits way high. I think it's 80% on this, give or take. You can run any reactor, but you want those god tier skill duration and cooldowns. As far as mods, this is what I found to be his best setup. So I'm running 2-piece bravery for HP recovery and then maximize shields. You want the best of everything. So shields, we're pushing those up, max HP, max defense, and then resistance where it makes sense, but MP also because he does require that. And then I'm running 2 pieces of annihilation so that we get more duration. Of course, for his drones, notice I don't have chill resistance on this, but I would prefer to have that if I could instead of max MP or shield recovery. And then here's my second piece, and then finally the processor. Just keep in mind his crits, his firearm damage, his reload modifiers, they all go up when his buffs are activated. He's ridiculously strong.
Let's do this!
So it took me a while to jump in with Sharen, but I'm glad I did because she has such a unique and crucial role in this fight. Sharen is the debuffer and serves as DPS support. Her job is all about weakening Gluttony's defenses, allowing the team to deal more damage faster. You'll be applying 2 key debuffs to Gluttony. Devotion's Mark, this is from your handgun, and it decreases Gluttony's defenses by 30%. The catch? It only lasts for 3 seconds, so you need to keep up consistent damage against his weak points to maintain this debuff. Battlesuit Melting Rounds is your second debuff, which reduces Gluttony's defense by 40%. To keep this active, you'll need to be a bit more aggressive with your positioning, as the rounds require you to be in closer range than most DPS roles. Because Sharen's role relies heavily on maintaining these debuffs, you'll need to get up close and personal more often than other DPS players, which makes her playstyle a bit more vulnerable, but the payoff is huge. Properly debuffing Gluttony makes the fight go much faster. During the immunity phase, your role changes a bit. I recommend using this time to collect ammo to stay topped off for the next damage phase. We're talking about for that pistol. And then assist with spears. Don't use the pistol on the spears. And do this as needed to help Valby keep the fight moving. If your team has 2 Gleys and the Sharen, you probably won't need anyone to latch onto the weak point, since Gley can burn Gluttony fast enough. But if it becomes necessary, Sharen will likely need to take on that responsibility. So be prepared to pivot to weak point management if the situation calls for it. Sharen's role is all about balancing debuffs and DPS. You'll need to keep those debuffs supplied to Gluttony's weak points while staying alive in more vulnerable positions. During the immunity phases, focus on resource collection and sphere management, and if no one else can latch onto the weak points, be ready to step in and get the job done. Sharen might require a more aggressive playstyle, but her ability to shred Gluttony's defenses makes her an invaluable part of the team and very fun to use. So it's all about maximized duration, range, and minimized cooldowns, and then from there it's survivability. Battlesuit melting rounds, you must run this. So this is going to modify her number 3. So instead of stunning them, this is going to decrease their defense. So if we look here, it says melting battlesuit rounds. We got max stacks at 2, the cooldown at 9.8 seconds, and then the MP cost at 30. Our range is at 17.2 meters. It's an absolute giant globe. And then the duration is 19.1 seconds. So you're tossing these all over the field. So although it reduces electric resistance, we're not really into that, but it's that defense decrease amount that we are into. That's a 40% decrease, which is huge. So we're going to spam these all around Gluttony, and we're going to be able to throw them back to back to back. So we got Battle of Stamina for max HP and duration. We got maximized range here. We don't care about skill power, but mega range. And then maximized duration for mega duration. Increased HP for survivability. Nimble fingers to drive down our cooldown so we can spam that skill. MP conversion for faster cooldowns. Skill extension so that the battlesuit melting rounds last longer. Skill expansion so that they're wider. I don't have anything here because I don't have these catalyzed. I normally use it for other things. The only thing I could add would be just a defensive role here. Otherwise, maximize chill resist. I would prefer the antifreeze, but this one matched up with the available catalyst spot that I had. So the weapon is the other thing that's really important. So let's take another closer look at this. The must here is the payout mod so that you don't have to worry about ammo as much. Ammo does become an issue because you're constantly shooting. So I do recommend this one so that you can convert for more ammo. And then a bigger magazine. I got fire priority, rifling reinforcement, pinpoint shot for firearm damage, and more weak point damage since we're shooting weak points, and then more weak point damage. So I'm going to exhaust all my weak point damage, and then from there go to crits and then mag size. For her, you don't really care about the reactor, but I got it lined up anyways. And then cooldown, duration, and range are what's important. Otherwise cost. And then from here, I'm running 4 pieces of annihilation for a little bit more damage in case we get to use it. Otherwise, it's about that additional duration for the battlesuit rounds. And then everything's the same here. So you're going to want MP, HP, and defense. And then if I could, I would have chill resistance here. And then she's going to work just like Gley. So kick off the fight in the alpha position, left or right. First thing you want to do is throw out your battlesuit melting rounds and then start wailing in on his weak points. Go for the shoulders or the knees and to just keep throwing out her skill and shooting weak points. It's mostly important that you're doing this when the DPS mains like the Gleys and the Enzos are shooting at Gluttony. So obviously you don't need to do this during the immunity phase, but if the Gleys are down for any reason and Valby's getting them up, then switch over to the Enduring Legacy, which is the same setup as I've shown you before, and then use that until your DPS team is back on their feet. There's no point in debuffing him if nobody's shooting at him but you. You just don't have the DPS all on your own to make use out of those debuffs. So save your ammo, switch to your Enduring Legacy, and then go back to your handgun when everybody's focus firing. Thank you for hanging out with me. My name is Tuxedo Bandido. That's Tito Bandido.
One and only.
And this was another episode of The First Descendant. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The First Descendant. And if you like videos like this, check out the one I have recommended for you right here. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy or download anything for the First Descendant, be sure to use Tux's creator code to support the channel. Easy peasy.
Follow me.